Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about how to avoid a bitter breakup with your PMDD partner. So, you know, my mantra is how to stop the PMDD monthly breakups. That's literally what I do for all of my private clients. But like I said before, I'm very well aware that there's sometimes in your relationships where they don't always work out. And I want to be able to help you navigate this. Because I have a lot of experience with this. I have a lot of experience with not wanting to be bitter about a breakup. And there's a reason for that. Bitterness is, it is the worst thing that you can carry on with you after a breakup, because it doesn't just damage, future relationships. It damages you as a person. Have you ever talked to someone and they're just in that negative space in regards to relationships? Like after maybe they've gone through a divorce, maybe they've gone through a breakup, and they're like, I'm never getting into another relationship. I'm never, going to go through that again, or I'm not getting married again. Like, I'm pretty sure you've all been there because you have relationships that you have broken up, before in the past. And you get to that point where you're really just saying, I never want this to be this way. And you're really just feeling like you're so jaded, you're so bitter about what happened with you and your ex. And I feel like it's so damaging to you as a person when you're carrying around a lot of that bitterness. You change as a person. I've gone through this process with my breakup where I had moments of bitterness, and then I quickly reset myself, right? I quickly did it because I didn't like that version of myself. I didn't want to feel negatively about my PMDD partner. I didn't want to feel like they were a bad person. I didn't want to feel like I had this aversion to, who they are and what they, pretty much downplay memories that you had in the past and almost get to that point where you feel like, I don't need them. I would be better off without them. Like all of these things that you can begin to think about when you become bitter after a breakup. I knew what that looked like. I knew what that felt like. And I just kept telling myself as I was navigating the breakup, as I was going through everything, I was like, I just don't want to be bitter. And I remember my friend even asking me, what is your thing about not being bitter? It's like, I don't want this breakup to change me as a person. And so I want you to really think about, I want you to be mindful of how you're shifting and changing as a result of maybe going through a breakup. Maybe that's where you are right now. And I don't want you to think that this doesn't apply to you, because maybe you're like, oh, Dr. Rose, we're not going through a breakup. Like this doesn't apply. I want you to take this knowledge and take these tools into issues that you may be having with your PMDD partner, the damage of being bitter with them, right? You may be at a point where you're just not talking to your PMDD partner right now. You all are just not seeing eye to eye. But when you're bitter, when you're carrying that resentment around, everything that they do, you're going to find an issue with, specifically when you go into PMDD. Every single time you go into PMDD, you're going to start looking at them differently. They're going to be becoming very unattractive to you. You're going to be, criticizing them, nagging them, almost being unattracted to them. All of these things start to happen when you're really bitter with your PMDD partner about something that they did, something that they said, something that they haven't done. You start to look at them differently and they look like a different person. And you may be saying to yourself, I deserve better than this. I do so much for them. They're so unappreciative. I'm so neglected. I'm not heard. I'm not seen. I'm not validated. All of these things. And it is because you're bitter with them over something that you wanted them to do, that you needed them to do, that they didn't do. And so that's where the source of bitterness comes from. It is an unmet expectation where your PMDD partner probably let you down. They probably hurt you. Maybe they didn't have any empathy or remorse for the way that they were talking to you. And so you start to get bitter because when I know for me, that's where the bitterness started to come up, where my PMDD partner started to say really harsh things to me. And then when I got into PMDD, I was so bitter because I'm like, you get the ego. You're like, who do they think they are? Like, who are they talking to? Like, why are they talking to me like that? Like, after you start to think, like, after everything I've done for them, this is how they're speaking to me. This is how they're treating me. This is how they're not prioritizing me. This is how they're neglecting me. This is how they're verbally abusing me. Like, all of these thoughts starts to come to your head and you get really bitter because you know the effort that you're putting in, and you may be in that place where you're the one putting forth a lot of effort in your relationship. And it's almost like, it's a phrase that I've been saying a lot, or I've been hearing a lot in my private sessions with my clients, and they're always like, it's the audacity, like the audacity for me. It is meaning the audacity of them to talk to you like that after everything that they've, you've done for them, or the audacity for them to talk to you crazy, even if you're just doing the best that you can, or the audacity to not show up the way that that you deserve. Maybe they're just consistently not doing things for you that that you deserve, that you feel like these are the basic needs. This is the basics of what you could do for me. And you're just choosing not to do it. One of the most hurtful things that I've seen a lot in my private sessions is where the PMDD partner knows the things that they need to do to make the relationship better. They're just choosing not to do them. And that's one of the things that happened in my PMDD relationship was I was giving the tools. I was saying, this is what you need to do. And they were just like, no, I don't have time for that. And I was like, that's where the bitterness came in. I'm like, how dare you, not try to save the relationship? Why am I the only one that you're drowning here trying to save it? And so I would get into these moments where I would be so bitter and so resentful. And I would look back on all the things that I've done, all the things that I've put up with, all the things that I've endured. And I would be like, they don't even deserve me. They don't deserve my loyalty. They don't deserve my compassion. They don't deserve my empathy. They don't deserve this effort. You know, I was in a place of feeling superior. When you start to get bitter, you get very like the ego just rises up because it's like, who are you? Like, I'm up here and my partner's down there, because you're looking at maybe the effort that they're putting in the relationship. And I remember towards the end, I was just like, I don't want to move on and be this changed person. I am a very positive, happy, uplifting, motivating, inspiring type of individual. If anyone has met me, knows me, that's the basis of my personality. When you're bitter, it takes your personality, the core of who you are, away from you. It makes you act out of character. And then guess who suffers because of that? It's you. It would have been me. If I was in that place of feeling bitter and acting on it, I would have done things, said things that are completely out of character. Maybe you've gotten to that point, in your PMDD relationship where your partner has done some things to you or not done some things, and you've gone off on PMDD rage and you say and do things that you regret later on. And you feel guilty about it. When you're bitter and you act on that bitterness, you will feel guilty about it. When I say that you will pay for it later on, you will pay for it with that guilt. And you can't run away from yourself. The guilt will be inside of you, just like the bitterness is inside of you. And you're going to look back on things that you've said. You're going to look back on things that you've done, and you're going to feel horrible about yourself as a person. And so I remember during the breakup, I'm like, I know that if I chose to be bitter, I would be completely justified. There's so many things that I could I could think about that would justify me being bitter, that would justify me being a horrible person, that would justify me talking to my ex like crap, that would justify me neglecting them when I knew that they needed me in the breakup process. Like one of the things that, you know, when you break up, there's a lot of logistics that goes on. There's a lot of things that you have to like sort out. And if you're bitter, you may be in that place where like figure it out on your own. Like you're not my problem anymore. Like I could have done that. And I had so many opportunities where there may be things that, you know, I may have and I don't send them back. I'm like, oh, it's mine now. Like th- there were things that I could have done and I could have justified it and been like, you know what? My PMDD partner cussed me out. So therefore, I don't have to be nice to them. I don't have to be loving to them. I don't have to be the core of who I am because of this action that they did to me. What I want you to do is to never allow your PMDD partner or your ex PMDD partner to take you out of character in a way that is going to be unrecognizable and you're going to be ashamed of later on. I don't want you to allow them and allow that bitterness to take you to a place that you're going to regret later on. Because at the end of the day, it's not what happens, it's your attitude about what happens that really matters. What I mean by that, it's not about what they did to you. You have the power to respond to whatever happens with your PMDD partner, regardless of how they treat you. You can't say you made me do this and you made me. I remember my PMDD partner yelling this to me at one time, and I literally was so offended, so hurt. But then I really had a chance to think about it. He yelled at me. He said, I can't make you feel anyway. You're choosing to feel that way. And I thought about that. I'm like, no, your actions are making me feel that way. What happens is when you have that mentality where you're saying, you're making me feel bitter, you're making me feel resentful, that's because you gave away that power. I was giving away that power to my PMDD partner. So you know that I have a PMDD partner's morning routine. And through my process of my morning routine, that is when I was taking that power back. I was saying, I no longer am going to allow my PMDD partner to bring that side of me out. I'm not going to allow them to make me bitter because I have to give them permission to do that. Any emotion that your PMDD partner invokes in you, that ignites in you, any emotion, whether it's depression, whether it's sadness, whether it's hurt, you give them permission to quote unquote make you feel that way by you accepting you, because it starts with the thought. Let me break it down for you, like the psychology behind it. It starts with the thought, meaning they do an action that you don't like. Maybe they reject you. Let me use that as an example. Your PMDD partner rejects you. And that happened to me a lot of times where I was trying to talk to my PMDD partner about the issues that we were having, and they were just neglecting me. They were saying, oh, figure it out on your own. You know, you have the issues. I don't have the issues. So I could take that neglect, that rejection, and create a thought in my mind about what that meant to me. I could say, I don't mean enough to you. I'm a horrible person. If they don't even take the time to acknowledge me, what kind of person am I? I must not be valuable. I then take that thought and it turns into emotion because now I'm thinking to myself, I'm not valuable because my PMDD partner neglected me, because they rejected me. I'm not valuable as a person. So then that ignites an emotion in me. So then I feel sad. Then I feel depressed. And then the ego comes and then I feel bitter. I'm like, they made me feel like I'm not a valuable person. They made me feel like this. They made me feel like this. And so I'm giving them all the power. But really what happened is it started with my thought, my belief about their behavior. Your belief about your PMDD partner's behavior will determine the emotion that you tie to it. It's not about what your PMDD partner does. It's about what emotion are you trying to have about it. So I remember towards the end, because I was so focused on not being bitter, I was like, okay, my PMDD partners, their behavior is not changing. There's nothing that I can do at this point that's changing their behavior. Talking to them about it, telling them how much it hurts me doesn't make them stop doing it. Like they're still continuing to do it. And I can't control what my PMDD partner does. And I want you to know you can't control what your PMDD partner does. And so when I got into PMDD and I had all of this anxiety, all of this overthinking about every single thing that my PMDD partner had done to me, I was like in my mind overthinking, they did this, they did this, they did this. I was replaying scenarios where they said hurtful words. I was replaying scenarios in my mind, and it was starting to make me feel even more and more bitter. And so when I was getting into that realm of overthinking and thinking like, oh, they did this because of this, they did this because of this, I didn't want to be bitter anymore. So I started to retrain my mind about what their actions meant, what their words meant. So I always use mantras with my private clients. So I literally started treating myself like I was my private client. I started literally counseling myself. I'm like, okay, if someone came to me, if a PMDD partner came to me, what would I tell them? What mantra would I give them in this situation? And I started to say to myself, because I had to get to the root of it. I was like, what is the root of what's really bothering me? What's making me feel bitter? And I was like, hurtful words. It's every single time my PMDD partner curses at me, every single time my PMDD partner yells at me, every time my PMDD partner says things that are below the belt, I always get really bitter because I start to feel like, how dare that person do that? Or bitter in a sense of, I've been open and vulnerable with you about these specific things and you're throwing them in my face, you know? So I started to get very bitter based off of the hurtful words. So then I started to say to myself, I created a mantra for myself that was going to help me to not be bitter when they said hurtful words. Because at this point, I couldn't stop my PMDD partner from saying the hurtful words. So I didn't have any control. You don't have any control over what your PMDD partner does. So I use this mantra. Everything that my PMDD partner is saying to me is more about them and less about me. It has nothing to do with me. Meaning, I said it in a couple of episodes before where I said hurt PMDD partners hurt PMDD partners. That's what was happening. My PMDD partner was feeling hurt. My PMDD partner was feeling broken. And so they were taking it out on me. So every single time my PMDD partner would say something hurtful, I would say everything that they're saying has everything to do with them and nothing to do with me. I was not taking ownership of those hurtful words. So if you call me a piece of crap, like if you say that to me, I'm not taking it personally because I'm using the mantra. Everything that you just said has everything to do with you and nothing to do with me. And I had to really reaffirm who I was as a person because the hurtful words were starting to tear me down because I was getting to a point where I was starting to believe them. And that's the most damaging thing is if your partner is at a place where they're saying negative words to you, you may get to a place, especially when you're in PMDD and you're already not feeling good about yourself, you may start to believe them. And so I remember being in that place where I'm like, you know what? I'm not that person. I'm not a piece of crap, you know, and it may sound very like weird to be able to talk back to yourself, but that's what I started to have to do. I started to have to challenge every hurtful word so that I wouldn't get bitter. Like that was my pot of gold. That was my reward for this. I'm like, the purpose of me doing this is so that I don't get bitter. So every time my PMDD partner would say, you're manipulative, you're selfish, you're this, you're that, I would have to, I would have to retrain my mind to what I was believing about what they were saying. That has to do with them. I would literally say it like that. Oh, they said that to me. That has to do with them. That's because they're in a bad place. They're hurting. You know, their life is miserable right now, which if you really think about it, at the times where your PMDD partner may be doing or not doing certain things to hurt you, they may not be in a good place in their life. So it may have everything to do with them. It's different if you think about it. If your partner's in an amazing place in their life and they're so happy and they're so fulfilled, they wouldn't be saying these things to you. That's just not something that someone does when they're in a good place. So when they're saying these hurtful words, it's like, oh, they're saying that because they're miserable. And it's not saying it in a way that's mean. It's just you're justifying it differently in your mind. And so now I'm not even bitter because I know that it's not true. I'm not bitter because I know that whatever you're saying about me, it's not true. Like you're just saying that because you're hurting. You know, there was times where my PMDD partner started to judge my morning routine. Oh, you have to do a morning routine. You can't even function without your morning routine when you're in PMDD. Like he was throwing it in my face. And I'm like, I started to retrain my mind. I could have been bitter about that. I could have been like, how dare you take something that I'm doing to cope with my PMDD symptoms and throw it in my face and make me feel like this wounded bird for a condition that I didn't even ask for. I do a morning routine because I have PMDD. I'm 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 pretty sure a lot of times I thought about that. I was like, if I didn't have PMDD, I probably wouldn't have to be so rigid with my morning routine. But because I have PMDD, I have to. Because if not, I would be a negative, bitter person because I would be like, woe is me. I have this disorder. I feel horrible about myself. I didn't ask for this. I don't deserve this. Like I would be stuck in a place. I do the morning routine to get myself out of it. And so when he was using that to throw it in my face, like, you can't even function without your morning routine. I said, yeah, you're right. And a lot of times you can acknowledge it and turn it around and it'll help you to not be bitter if there's some truth to it. I'm like, you're absolutely right. Like, I wasn't giving my PMDD partner the permission to cause me to be bitter by acknowledging, like, hey, you're absolutely right about that. I can't function well in a way that I would feel good about without my morning routine. And what? It's kind of like that. It's like a one up. It's like, and what? Like, what else are you going to use against me? You're taking away their power to affect you emotionally in that way. When my PMDD partner called me sensitive, effing sensitive, but censoring it here because I don't curse on here, but yeah, called me effing sensitive because I was in PMDD and I was just really talking about everything and blah blah blah. And when that was said to me, I was like, I am sensitive right now. Like, so there was no need for me to be bitter about it because I'm like, okay, I am being sensitive right now. I'm a human with emotions and there's nothing wrong with being sensitive. What else is there? You have to take your power back. Stop allowing everything that your PMDD partner says to you get you to a place where you're bitter and resentful and you start acting out of character because you're the one that's going to suffer because you're going to look back and you're gonna feel differently about yourself based off of your actions, based off of your mind. I know you're a good person because like attracts like, as my business coach says. You're attracted to me, so I am trusting that you're a good person. If you weren't a good person, you would probably not be attracted to me. I know so many people that like people that want to talk crap about people, that want to gossip, that want to be bitter, that want to be resentful, that want to be those kind of people. I've seen forums. There's so many PMDD forums where they just want to bash PMDD partners. They just want to go in there and say how horrible they are, how horrible the partner is, how they need to do better, you're attracted to me. I'm not doing that. That's not the core of who I am. So if you're attracted to me, then you are in alignment with that same thing. So that means you're not a bitter person. You don't want to be bitter. And if you get bitter, it doesn't feel good to you. For some people, it feels good to them to talk about other people, to not want to work on their relationships, to want to just break up just to break up because it's like, oh, you don't deserve me, the ego and all those things. You're attracted to me. You're here. You're listening to this because you are a good person. And when you have that bitterness inside of you, it overshadows the core of who you are. And so if you're going through a breakup, if you're going through a hard time in your relationship, there's a way to get through it without the bitterness. And so the first thing that I had to do when I was wanting to move forward out of this breakup, I'm like, I don't want to be that person that, like tells every negative thing that happened with my PMDD partner. I'm so protective. I'm so protective even after the breakup. I'm very protective about what I disclose about my ex PMDD partner because I don't believe, and this is the basis of it, I don't believe that my ex PMDD partner is a bad person. I wouldn't have been with a bad person. I know a lot of times when you're going through a breakup, you want to say all these negative things about them. They're this and they're that. And I always say, well, you chose them. Like as much as you want to talk about them and all, you chose that person. So I would never take the person that I chose and then talk crap about them. I'm not saying that my PMDD partner is a bad person. They just might not be a good person for me. Maybe there's somebody that can endure a lot of what was expected for me to endure. I don't believe that there's not. There has to be. Right. So if one of the basis of the problems that he had with me was that I was too sensitive, I can be sensitive. I'm very in tune with my emotions. I'm very emotionally intelligent. I'm very self-aware. I'm very proactive when it comes to I'm a doctor. Right. this is what I do. So if the expectation was for me to just not be in tune with my emotions and want to actively, address issues and all these, if that's not me, but that doesn't mean that there's not somebody out there who is also a good person who wants to be with someone that maybe it's like they don't want to be that deep. They don't want to talk about issues. They don't want to talk about emotions. They don't want to implement the tools. Maybe someone else is better fitted for my PMDD partner that I had that could go through what we went through and not allow it to affect them. Meaning they could go through neglect, they could go through, talking crazy to each other. I've seen it before where people can cuss each other out and make love at night. I'm not that person. If you cuss me out in the morning, good luck. You know what I mean? Like I'm not that person where it's not all for me, it's like that movie or that was it a movie? No, it was a show I was watching. Oh my gosh, I can't think of the name, but they manifest. And on the show Manifest, they kept saying it's all connected. That's how I feel. How you speak to me is directly correlated with our physical intimacy. How you speak to me is directly related to my level of affection with you. How you speak to me is so maybe that was because I'm going through this process of like, what am I learning from this? I'm trying to learn from this whole experience in the moment, like in real time. And what I have learned for my future and moving forward is I need to be with someone that speaks to me kindly and nicely and gently and does not disrespect me in a verbal way because I have a lot of childhood trauma and that's a trigger for me. The reason why the hurtful words were such a trigger for me and the reason why I kept going into that realm of being bitter was because I grew up with verbal abuse from my adopted father. And so I would always go back to that place and my ex PMDD partner was taking me back to that place. And the bitterness came because it was so hurtful. Because I was like, I left home to get away from this treatment. And now I'm right back in the same situation. And I was talking to my sister about it. And she feels the same way when it comes to relationships. She's like, yeah, we grew up with verbal abuse. Like at this point, I can't be in a relationship with anyone that talks to me crazy. Like I can't do it. I can't do it because it brings up too much. Even though we are healed from our childhood trauma, we are forever probably going to have triggers. It's just a way of us managing our triggers. So moving forward for me, I know I need someone that's going to speak to me kindly and nicely. And I know that I deserve that. And that's okay. And so my bitterness was not when I was moving on. I believed he's a good person. He just needs to be with someone who, if he gets angry and gets upset, can take that verbal communication and let it roll off of them. Because because we did have a session after we broke up and we really talked about everything. And he was like, yeah, I just want you to, if you could change this one thing about you, we would be fine. And the one thing that he was wanting me to change was being able to take harsh words and let it like roll off of my back even if I was able to do that, which I think a lot of times I did do that in my follicular days, when I get into PMDD, that's not going to happen. Right. So earlier in my journey, and I would say 2020 and before, I was not the same person. I was not the person that could hear the harsh words and just take them and with a grain of salt and blah blah. Right now, I normally do a coping mechanism of what my ex community partner was saying, going internal. Meaning it's kind of that saying of if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. One of the things that kept me from being bitter was just being silent. It was a lot of times I didn't have anything nice to say. So I didn't say anything at all. And I didn't even feel bad about it. And that was a way of getting me away from being bitter because I was like, you know what? I could say a lot of like when my ex community partner was saying hurtful things to me, I was thinking I could destroy this person emotionally. I could send them to a therapist with the information that I have and how I could use what I knew to tear them apart. I knew it. I know that I have that ability because prior to 2020, when I was first navigating everything, I would say really hurtful things back. Like I would never initially do it, but when I got into PMDD rage before I learned the tools, I would say it right back to you. And you would be one of the times I did it, my partner was like literally in the corner, like balled up, hurting bad because of the words that I said. And I remember looking at myself and like, I never want to be that person. Like I could be the villain. I know it, I have it inside of me, right? It's just a matter of what I'm choosing to let out, how I'm choosing to react. So now I'm way more mindful. So a lot of times when I could be bitter and resentful and say those hurtful words, I just sit back and I just kind of like, okay, okay. Like, and it's not in a sense of defeat, because I know sometimes you could feel like it's kind of like, oh, I feel so weak for not saying something back. It's kind of like in those school fights where in school where maybe you see somebody get beat up or they get, whatever, and then later on they go home and they're like, I should have done this or I should have said this. Like it's almost like that. But I just say, okay, and I feel proud of myself. When you go through situations where you choose not to be bitter at a place and a time where you know that you have the power to, you have the right to, it would be completely justified, but you're choosing not to, you become really proud of yourself and proud of yourself as a person. Because I always have to remind myself, remember who you are. I don't I literally got this from The Lion King. That's one of my favorite movies. And it's like when Simba was looking in the mirror, and not it was in a mirror, it was a lake. And Mufasa had came like as like an angel, Mufasa, and he was like, remember who you are. Remember who you are. Like that's what I do every single time so that I don't get bitter. I just think to myself, remember who you are, Rose. Remember who you are. And a lot of times you will lose yourself sometimes in who you are with what you're going through with your PMDD partner. I felt like towards the end, I felt like I was losing my marbles. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know if I was coming or going. I felt like I was literally losing my mind, to the point was it was affecting how I was functioning. I don't know if you've ever been in that traumatic situation with your relationship where you feel like you wake up in the morning and you're filled with anxiety. You're feel like I was on such high alert. It's like that Will Smith song or the little motto for Will Smith. My life got flipped, turned upside down. Like that's how I felt, because I just was living in a state of constant anxiety and stress and overwhelm, and PMDD was making that so much where I mean when I went into PMDD I was like, oh, like I'm done. Like it's almost like somebody else took the wheel of my vehicle and I was just sitting there, just flailing around, feeling I'm getting tossed around. Internally I was suffering so much, I could barely get out of bed. Everything felt so heavy for me. And then I had so much bitterness and resentment that I was in this place because of what was going on with my PMDD partner. And I remember feeling like I wouldn't be going through any of this. This is supposed to be the happiest time in my life, where I just got my doctorate. I have amazing clients. I'm doing all of these things, but this is why I'm telling you, if you don't get a control and hold over what's going on in your PMDD relationship, you're not really going to be able to enjoy much else in your life. And I've seen this and I've felt this and I've experienced this. 2023 was supposed to be the best year for me. That rhymes. I need to get a t-shirt that says that. 2023 was supposed to be the best year for me. Everything was completing, everything was happening and outside of my relationship that was amazing. But what was happening inside of my relationship was pouring over into every single, like gravy on mashed potatoes. It was like pouring over into every single thing that I was going through, and I couldn't stop it. I had no control over it because I couldn't control my PMDD partner. I couldn't force him and make him use the tools and make him do things differently. And when I went through the breakup, the reason why I was able to not be bitter was because I let go of trying to control. I said, you know what? I have done the best that I can. I remember towards the end, I was going through like a back and forth period. If you've ever been through a breakup where you break up one day and then you get back together, you break up one day and you get back together. Of course, you know that because we do the monthly breakups, here with PMDD. Now, my breakup wasn't PMDD related. It wasn't because of what was going on in PMDD. And this is what I always say to private clients when they're thinking like, oh, is this PMDD or I always say if it's only coming up when you're in PMDD, then it's a PMDD monthly breakup. And that's what I give you the tools for here. Mine was all month long PMDD, follicular ovulation. Like it was, and it was not just the issues that were magnified from PMDD. These are issues that me and my partner had, period. Like the long distance, the 5 years that we were apart, the communication, like we had intimacy. All of these issues that we were having were not directly correlated to PMDD, but PMDD definitely made them worse. So that is the difference between a breakup and a PMDD monthly breakup. PMDD monthly breakups are when you're only breaking up because of things that come up during PMDD. PMDD is making things, meaning you're completely affectionate in your follicular days, you're completely connected, all of these things, but then you go into PMDD and you're not connected and you're not intimate and you're not all these things. So then you break up because you don't have that. But then you go back into your follicular days and you have it again. With mine, everything was going wrong the whole time. And so I didn't want to be bitter about this. So I had to have some finality about it. I had to stop the process of forcing and start the process of grieving and mourning. Mourning, meaning mourning the loss of my life with my PMDD partner. That was the hardest part for me, was to just let go of the forcing and the trying, because there was so much bitterness with that, because I was trying so hard and it wasn't for a lack of effort. And I was like, I'm trying, and nothing was working. And I couldn't make it work. And I had to say, you know what? It just may not be I may not be the right person, and it may not be the right time. And that's okay. And I had to just let it go. And I remember I was in the shower crying in Cabo, Mexico. And I remember just hearing very softly, just let it go, Rose, just let it go. Because I was in the most beautiful resort, in the most beautiful place, enjoying, trying to enjoy it. And nothing mattered. You could have put me literally anywhere in the world and nothing mattered, because of the suffering that I was going through internally with my PMDD relationship, trying to force something that just was not meant to be. I was forcing it, and I didn't find peace, which is the opposite of the bitterness, until I agreed to let it go. Because even when I heard that small voice just say, just let it go, I started to fight with that. Well, no, because of this, and no, because of that. I had to just let it go. Right. And that peace that you get from stopping and forcing is what stops you from being bitter, because then I stopped suffering. And then I no longer was blaming my PMDD partner for suffering, because I wasn't suffering anymore. And so that's exactly what I want to talk to you about when it comes to my Rise with Dr. Rose couples retreat, right? When you're coming together to work on your issues that are in your relationship because you want to stay together, there's no bitterness. If you're bitter in your relationship because you feel like you're on the brink of a breakup, you need to come to this retreat. You need to come to this retreat, get to the root of the issues, to address them, to relax, to have fun, to reconnect, all of these things, so that you don't become bitter because you know that you're on the brink of a breakup. You know it. You know it. What is the first thing that people say to each other as advice when they know that you're going through relationship issues? What's the first thing they say if they genuinely want the best for you and your PMDD partner? Have you tried counseling? That's the number one thing that I always hear, like as a last resort. Have you tried counseling? And what I'm asking you is, have you tried counseling? Have you tried? Sometimes you have to get out of your element. I know I work with a lot of private clients virtually. This is a way to get out of your element. I've had private sessions with individuals where I'm like, we need to go to a different place. We need to mix this up. I have somewhere they're literally in their car, and then they're like, let's just have the session here. You got to remove yourself out of the same environment a lot of times to even see things going differently in your PMDD relationship. Environment has a lot to do with it. It really, really does. And that's when I moved earlier in this year. I was stuck in that same house, in that house that my ex PMDD partner was not happy in. I had to move. I said, I can't stay here, because it's a constant reminder of what didn't work. Right. So when I moved, I had like a fresh outlook on things. And I'm like, okay, I'm moving. And I moved from that big house to this nice condo that I'm in. And it helped me to reframe my mind because of what I was seeing on a day-to-day basis. It wasn't the same old thing. So this retreat is an opportunity for you and your PMDD partner to connect in a different atmosphere. Go on vacation together. It's going to be in beautiful Orlando, Florida, especially if you live in one of those states or countries. Because right now I have PMDD partners in 60 countries right now. If you live in one of those places that is cold during the winter, right? If you listen to one of my earlier episodes, I talk about the winter and PMDD relationship. If you're living in a place that's cold, come to the Sunshine State. Come on a retreat with me for it's only 3 days. I made the itinerary. So you really just don't even really need to take off of work, because the first session is going to start, the first event when we're going to have dinner and social hour and stuff like that is going to be at 5 p.m. Actually, no, it's not 5 p.m. I think it's going to be at 6 or 7. So you can literally take a half day, go into work, and then fly into Orlando, Florida, and still be ready for everything. And then you get released on Sunday afternoon just in time to go back to work. But that 3 days, the way that you're going to leave feeling unstuck in your PMDD relationship, you're going to have addressed the issues in your PMDD relationship. So you're not doing the same thing. You're not having the same fights, right? And you're even getting a free pre-retreat private session with me. So when we go into this, we're talking about the issues, and then we're seeing each other in person, and we're implementing the tools. You're going to walk away with workbooks and things, and even bringing in my special guest, my bestie, for massage, to relax, to release all of the stress. Like, when is the last time you've actually released stress with your PMDD partner? I know a lot of times for me, I was doing a lot of releasing, but it had nothing to do with my PMDD partner. I want you to get to a place where you can find peace with your PMDD partner. You can get stress relief with your PMDD partner. You don't have to be away from them in order for it to happen. I don't want your escape to be away from your PMDD partner. I want you to get to that place where you're bonding with your PMDD partner and knowing that your PMDD partner is your safe place. So many times you're in these relationships and you're feeling like, I just need a break, but you're feeling like you need a break and a break up from your PMDD partner. I'm going to show you how you can address the issues, acknowledge the issues, resolve the issues with the tools, and then reconnect. Resolve the issues and then reconnect, which is the most amazing thing, because you're coming back together. You're getting to that intimacy that's been missing, that emotional and physical intimacy that has been missing. We're going to be all together in a big house, pool, hot tub, all of the things. It's going to be amazing. You're going to relax. You're going to be able to reconnect, and you're going to be able to get unstuck in your PMDD relationship. What's going to be able to be accomplished in these 3 days is going to be more than I can do with you for a year of sessions, right? Working with you in person is so impactful. Body language, connecting, all of that is so impactful. So if that's something that you know that you need, I'm not even going to say that you want, because it's going to be a beautiful location. It's literally right down the street from Disney World, right? So you're going to have time to explore with your PMDD partner. I'm going to be giving you time to go out and explore and have a date night. Have a date night with your PMDD partner. Like, when is the last time that you've had a date night and a massage and connection and intimacy and address your issues, right? So we're not doing the avoiding our issues and going out on date night just to argue about our issues on date night. How many of you have been there? I know I've been there. That actually happened one of the last times that my ex-PMD partner came home. Was we kept going on date nights and addressing the issues at date night, and it was horrible. In the restaurant, horrible, arguing, going. How many of you have been on a car ride home and nobody's talking to each other? And you're thinking to yourself, this was supposed to be date night. Come to this retreat, get renewed, get restored, get reconnected with your PMDD partner. I cannot wait to meet you in person. Have these private sessions in person, have the group sessions, meet other PMDD partners, connect with them. It's going to be a limited amount of couples. Once these couples are locked in, then I'm going to have to close this out. So I don't know the next time I'm going to be doing it. It's March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So make sure you go to the link that's in the show notes. You go to In Love with PMDD. You're going to have all the details there, but I'm so excited to work with you in person for 2024. We're not doing the same things that we did before. We're not doing the same things because I don't want you to end up, how fast did 2023 go by? And then you look and you're like, oh my gosh, we're in December. I feel like 2024 is going to fly by. And I don't want you to be in the same place in your relationship. So make sure you join. It is limited amount. The early bird special, it's going to be $500 off, and it's only going to be for a limited amount of time. After that, it's going to go to full pricing. So make sure you grab it. Until next time, we got this. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.